For more Liquid Lunch, head over to YouTube, do a search for Liquid Lunch TV, and hit that subscribe button.
I love when the music's coming in before we come on.
Yeah.
Like, you get a little bop going, and then they just quick cut it. Like, is there any way we can get that to, like, dip into the segment, like fade out, rather than just cut off? No? Nope. We can't do that?
Can't do it.
In a continuing effort to make television great again, I'm being told in my earpiece that we will have a production meeting and we will talk about carrying the music bed into the segment, which I think would be a big advance.
Absolutely.
For us.
Well, our next guest, big fan of Kenny Rogers, the gambler, at least his dad was.
Excellent.
So maybe we could get some special
joining us
music
today, after a little technological snafu on Tuesday, is Jack Carr. He's a former Navy SEAL. He's also author of the book True Believer. And Jack, thank you. Now we see you, we hear you.
All right, thank you for having me on. And I'm fairly certain you guys can do that with the bump music. I think we put a man on the moon in 1969, so I'm sure that production meeting you guys can figure that out. And I'm pulling for
well, we have at least one guest that questions the official government story of whether we did in fact put a man on the moon. So we'll put that issue aside for debate.
All right, all right.
So Jack, you've been on the front lines for us and all the freedoms and liberties we enjoy here. Thank you for your service. God bless you. And in True Believer, you know, you're talking about, you know, all the real stuff that happens. It's a fictional book, but it's about the life and crimes of a sniper, I guess. And
Yeah, no, the first one was a book of revenge without constraint, and writing these kind of novels is something I wanted to do since I was a little kid, because a lot of the information you got back then, before the internet, came from the pages of fictional thrillers, because the protagonist usually had some sort of special operations background in Vietnam back in the 80s anyway. So the first one was a novel of revenge without constraint, explored that theme, and then the second one was really inspired by something that happened to me in Iraq in 2006, where I was working with what best be described as a covert action unit, and we had an Iraqi officer who was really head and shoulders above his peers as far as tactical battlefield leadership. And it was around the time of the Golden Mosque bombing, if you remember that. That was really brought the Sunni-Shia rift to the forefront and threatened to rip the country apart even further than it already was. And it was an interesting time to be operating in Baghdad. But years later, I got word that this Iraqi officer disappeared. And I thought, what if I was to make this a lot more interesting, fictionalize it, have him resurface in Europe, having been trained by the CIA and our special operations forces, now using those skills against the Western world. So that's where the action really kicks off in True Believer.
So, Jack, congratulations. I join John in thanking you for your service as well. Congratulations on the success of your first book and all the buzz that this book has generated. Now, when I learned your mother was a librarian, it did not surprise me at all that you had a passion for both reading and writing at a young age. My question is, one, why did you choose to write fiction? I imagine that you've seen more things that would be stranger than fiction than most Americans, most people on the face of the earth. And we've seen a lot of other Navy SEALs write kind of how-to guides on everything from leadership to physical fitness. But you chose to fictionalize real-life events. How come?
Right, so it's just what I wanted to do from when I was a little kid on. I have such great memories of spending time in the pages of those novels by guys like Tom Clancy and Nelson DeMille and David Morrell and A.J. Quinnell and J.C. Pollock and all these masters in the 80s that wrote books like this. And I always knew that one day after the military, I'd write fiction. And I never really wanted to write nonfiction for a few reasons, but one of them is a lot of people did way more than I ever did downrange. So, we'll leave the nonfiction to them, and I'll do what I love and enjoy, which is writing fiction.
What about these reports on cocaine abuse?
Oh, geez, I saw that. So I'm 3 years removed from Naval Special Warfare now, and so I did catch that as part of a platoon that was sent home or something from deployment recently. And I don't have any inside information on that, other than if the platoon's sent home, there's probably a good reason.
So you served for close to 20 years as a Navy SEAL, pretty high ranking in the Navy SEALs. It's the most elite of the elites. You got to be as tough as nails to even get into the Navy SEALs, let alone deal with 7 deployments overseas. I'm curious if you have any take, not that you have any inside information, on the prosecution of Navy SEAL Chief Eddie Gallagher and the speculation that some of the prosecutors in that case might face certain repercussions.
Right. So I followed that just like anyone else did, without any inside information, just catching bits and pieces on the news and catching things online. But I will say that it is imperative that we maintain the moral high ground downrange. Sometimes that's the only thing that differentiates us from the enemy. So it's something that needs to be discussed, not just once, but throughout a workup as you're getting ready to go downrange. And then if you're going to go after somebody that's doing this job downrange, then you better maintain the moral high ground as well. And those prosecutors, from what I saw, stepped way over the line. In my experience with military justice in general, is that they're playing these characters that they see on TV, and for some reason they think they're immune from having to follow the rules and do the right thing. So, and this case, I think, highlights that. So whatever comes down on those guys for doing what they did, as far as prosecutorial missteps, then they have it coming.
Hey, Jack, thanks again for your service. Thanks again for joining us. And sorry we missed you on Tuesday, but come back anytime. And you out there watching at home, go out and get True Believer by a member of Navy SEAL Team 10, Jack Carr. It's a fictionalized version of some real serious stuff that went on throughout Jack's 20-year career, nearly 20-year career, and especially as a special operator in Iraq in 2006. Check out True Believer. Stay right there. Watch these commercials quick, and you're going to check out Frank and Kate make fun of me.